Rahim. We will continue with the life cycle assessment. So, what is life cycle assessment? It is compilation and evaluation of the inputs, outputs, and the potential environmental impacts of a product system throughout its life cycle. And whole this process is mm, uh, divided in phases and stages. So what are the stages? The stages are something which the product is going to pass through, while the phases are related to the LCA procedures. So uh, LCA procedures are those which will be uh, guided by the organization, which will be developed by the uh, stakeholders which will be conducting this LCA. So we will explain it, and then we will be collecting data and inputs and outputs of the system, and then associated environmental and resource impact of those input and outputs would be worked out in the form of inventory and then its analysis. So what are the phases which we are going to pass through? If you observe, we are having goal and scope, then we have inventory analysis, then we have impact assessment, and then we also need to interpret. We need to define what we actually mean from all these terms. For every product and for every LCA, we need to define its specific goals and scope. So how we will be doing that? We should be clear what is our objective, what is our target. So why we are conducting this LCA? So in this case, for example, what could be the possibilities? Which the possibilities are that we might be conducting LCA for simply altering the design. Maybe we need to replace the product, maybe we need to change the um, whole product in the form of some new concept. So it's all about the description in the form of goal and scope. So again, what are the goals? What could be the goals? The goals could be to replace the product, or simply alter the product, some simple modifications, and quite possible we need to improve the product by improving the efficiency of the product. So these are something related with the goal. And then scope includes at what level we need to focus. So whether we need to work on the in extraction of the raw material, or we need to work on the manufacturing phase, or we need to work on the designing phase, or we need to work on the outcome and packaging of the product. So at what this will be defined in the scope. And then we have an inventory analysis that it will be directly linked with the data collection, and then we will have an analysis of the impact assessment. Again, as we mentioned so many times, it is about the numbering of the risk, how much uh, potential risk is present in this kind of scenario. So for every specific action we would have a specific assessment, and we would be assessing it in the form of its number or grades. So what are the stages? What could be the possible stages? We have already defined these stages in our previous section. So it is about the extraction and upstream production, and then transport to the manufacturing, and then again use of that product, and then disposal and recycling of the product. Here you can find that All these things we have discussed in the previous lecture, previous section, and the first two are the ones related with the industry, and the remaining two are concerned with the consumer end. So then, so what are the principles of LCA? So guidance for product process or constructed elements selection, uh, entire life cycle environmental burden between stages and processes relative to a functional unit. So only environmental considerations addressed, and then iterative process where each phase uses results of the other phase. So these are some of the principles which are actually explaining that what how we are going to conduct it. So again, these are related with the product itself and the process, and then the selection of the element, and then we have the entire life cycle environmental burden between stages and the processes, and then we have a relative to a functional unit. So functional unit actually defines that how much the product would be utilized, how much that product will be continuously in operation. So this is something about the life cycle of the product. So then like an light bulb and bus functional unit is also expressed here. So another important principle of LCA is that only environmental considerations would be addressed. So it's again very much obvious. And then we have an iterative process. So again it is the same process which we have implemented in our journal CPT techniques, which we studied in chapter 3, that there is a closed loop always, because we need to repeat our findings. So we again need to work on the on those sections which need some improvement, and then we keep on repeating this kind of assessment, and the information gathered in the previous